Every morning when I greet the sun, when I move forth through crowded ways, in my heart, Lord, ever so silently, I will always think of Thee. In my heart, Lord, ever so silently, I will always think of Thee.
When I work, oh, and when I cry with pain, when my best friends misunderstand, in my heart, Lord, ever so silently, I will always think of Thee.
In my heart, Lord, ever so silently, I will always think of Thee. Dear God, my God, I am Thine for eternity. Dear God, my God, I am Thine eternally. Though my path lead me over desert sands, though it take me through bitter storms, in my heart, Lord, ever so silently, I will always think of Thee. In my heart, Lord, ever so silently, I will always think of Thee.
When I laugh, oh, and when I cry with pain, when my best friends misunderstand, in my heart, Lord, ever so silently, I will always think of Thee.
In my heart, Lord, ever so silently, I will always think of Thee. Dear God, my God, I am Thine for eternity. Dear God, my God, I am Thine eternally. Dear God, my God, I am Thine for eternity. Dear God, my God, I am Thine eternally.
Welcome, everyone, to Sunday service at the Temple of Light at Ananda Village. Today feels like the beginning of fall with a little bit of coolness and moisture in the air. My name is Nayaswami Anandi. This is Nayaswami Bharat. Our speaker this morning is Brahmachari Sagar. This week's reading from Rays of the One Light, very important, powerful reading, especially at this time. Rays of the One Light is weekly commentaries on the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita written by Swami Ananda. And this week's reading is Victory Demands the Courage of Conviction. Truth is one and eternal. Realize its oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. Jesus Christ said in the Gospel of St. Matthew, chapter 10, "Think not that I am come to send peace on earth. I came not to send peace, but a sword. For I am come to set a man at variance against his father, and the daughter against her mother, and the daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. And a man's foes shall be they of his own household. He that loveth father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. And he that loveth son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. And he that taketh not his cross and followeth after me is not worthy of me. He that findeth that is to say, clingeth to his life, shall lose it. And he that loseth, in other words, giveth up his life for my sake, shall find it. God tests the firmness of our faith. The sword described here is the sword of discrimination. The struggle Jesus describes is not a war against unknown enemies, but the struggle with our own attachment to all that is nearest and dearest to us, humanly speaking. Ultimately, it is a war against the ego itself and against anything with which we surround ourselves to bolster the ego's fragile sense of security. When Yogananda, as a boy, fled to the Himalayas to embrace a life of solitary meditation, he was apprehended by his older brother Ananda and brought home again. At a certain point, before he would accept defeat, he whispered to his friend Amar, his companion on the flight, "Let us slip away when opportunity offers. We can go on foot to Rishikesh." But Amar, whose brother had accompanied Ananta, had turned pessimist, disclaiming any intention of continuing their adventure. Yogananda's memorable comment on Amar's refusal was, he was enjoying the familial warmth. The spiritual warrior rejects that familial warmth. Rather, he claims the whole universe as his home. As the Bhagavad Gita puts it in the 14th chapter, unaffected by outward joys and sorrows, or by praise and blame, secure in his divine nature, regarding with equal gaze a clod of mud, a stone, and a bar of gold, impartial toward all experiences, whether pleasant or unpleasant, firm-minded, untouched by either praise or blame, treating everyone alike, whether friend or foe, free from the delusion that, in anything he does, he is the doer. Such a one has transcended nature's triune qualities. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om, Om, Om.
And welcome to this Sunday service. My name's Sagar, and it's my pleasure to be with all of you, sharing our wonderful Guru's teachings. As usual, let's begin by reading from Whispers from Eternity. And this particular Whispers, which are prayer demands, they strengthen our resolve, is called I Demand to Return Home. So let me read this to you. Impediments beware, flee my path. I am homeward bound. Through the long corridors of time, stumbling often into pits of error, then lifted out by thy unseen hand. I have walked painfully, discouraging darkness, barbed wire fences of habit, stony embankments of indolence, mountains of indifference, oceans of unfaithfulness, sirens of sense longing, may stand even now in my path as if to prevent my onward march to thy palace. But 1,000,000 kingdoms and sextillions of years of unblemished worldly happiness will never tempt me again to turn away from thee. And so this topic, victory demands the courage of conviction. I just want to read again a couple lines from Rays of the One Light. Let's take that as our starting point for this really interesting and important topic. Now, Swami Kriyananda writes, the spiritual warrior rejects the familial warmth. And he's not talking about an abstract spiritual warrior. He's talking about you and I. So let's start with our self-definition. What's our self-definition? We are spiritual warriors. And it's always nice to remember that, because as Nayaswami Bharat was reading, I must confess, while preparing for this talk, I forgot to read up what the affirmation for this week was. It was positive thinking. But as I was listening to him, he said something, the affirmation that Swamiji wrote says, "My outer life is a reflection of my inner thoughts." First, our self-definition has to be right. If that's not right, then your outer life is a reflection of other priorities creeping up and taking up the space that we should reserve for our divine search. So let's start with that first thing, the self-definition that we are spiritual warriors. And then Swami Kriyananda narrates this fun, there's the chapter, My Flight Toward the Himalayas, and Swamiji writes from that chapter. Yogananda was always, as a little boy, trying to run away from home, according to his family. And he was always caught by his elder brother, who was very, very shrewd, and brought back home. But if it was Yogananda himself, he would take offense at that interpretation of the narrative. It was his family's interpretation that he was running away from home. I think Yogananda's interpretation would be he was running toward home. This world is not our home. He was doing the right thing. The home is cosmic consciousness. It's infinity. And the yogis, the great avatars, they are so charged with that understanding and realization that as soon as they are born and can start walking and talking, that's where they want to go. And all the others, they think, oh, he's running away from home. No, you and I need to have that same determination to run toward home, which is not even for a magical place such as Ananda village. Our home is not 14618 Tyler Foot Road. This is a way station. Toward a very good way station to make our sprint toward our true home, which is self-realization. But I want to also talk about a couple practical things here, because it's very easy for us to get diverted from this path. What are those diversions? Well, this whispers mentions all of them one by one. Let me read some of the things that keep us. Impediments, beware. What are those impediments? Discouraging darkness. Well, we can blame God for that, let's say, because sometimes we don't get the blessings of meditation as soon as we want them. Barbed wire fences of habit, stony embankments of indolence, which is laziness, mountains of indifference, oceans of unfaithfulness, sirens of sense longings that stand in our path. Now, I think I can see all those things at work in my life. And probably the same is true for you also. So we need to learn how to keep the one goal in front of us always. Now, unfortunately, the way Yogananda put it is this world is like a show God has put on. It's like a movie. But unfortunately for us, God is a very, very engaging script writer. He's really done the show so well that it's hard to take our eyes off the show. And I want to tell you a story from my own personal life about this. And I told Prashad before we did this Sunday service, I'm going to talk about Spiderman and the Avengers. Because it's been a year since we've had this temple and nobody's, talked about them. It didn't feel right. So I says, I'm going to talk about it. I always loved Yogananda's analogy that this world is a movie. He would take his students to the movie theater. He would say, let's enjoy this engaging movie. But when the audience, his students, were really engaged, really engrossed in watching the movie, he would tap them on the shoulder, and they would suddenly jump up. And then he would say, oh, well, look at the beam of light. Don't look at the movie. Don't get engrossed there. If you look at the movie, you see ups and downs, pain and pleasure, life and death, sorrow and happiness. But as soon as you learn to withdraw and look to the pure beam of light, you see it's only a drama. It's not a reality. The light is the reality.
And because before I came here to Ananda village, I had to share these teachings very often in Mumbai. This was my favorite analogy. I thought I knew exactly what Yogananda meant. I was trained. I had talked about this so many times. So sure enough, a couple years ago, Marvel released Spiderman Homecoming. And I said to myself, well, when I go there, I'm going to practice Yogananda's teachings. I'm going to look to the beam at least 3 or 5 times. I'm trained in this. I mean, it'll be easy. Well, every time I remember, let me look to the beam. I says, well, I can do it 5 minutes from now. This is engrossing. He's becoming Spider-Man. I don't want to miss what's happening on the screen. And then after 10 minutes, well, there's still time. And imagine my embarrassment when the end credits started rolling up and I had not looked to the screen. And, this is how this world is. It's much more engaging than the Spider-Man movie. We have children, we have jobs, we have health, relationships, projects, tasks. All of us have good intentions. But all those things, because we are already engrossed in the movie, we don't have the option to say, I won't watch it. We have already been deeply engrossed in this movie for incarnations. It's very hard to pull away our concentration and look to the beam. So then Avengers came out, and I said, well, this time I'm going to do better. But I failed again. 3 hours I was watching the movie, and finally it was some other movie, probably the second Avengers or whatever it was, that I was able to turn and look to the beam. But it made me realize it's very easy for that fire of divine search to start smoldering. We want it to be a conflagration, but it's very easy. And you and I are not really to blame completely. This drama is very engrossing. But be that as it may, we want ourselves to become spiritually free. Another story which is fascinating to me was, I had just come here to Ananda village, and Nayaswami Jaya, he was here, we talked, he made sure I was all set, and he went back to India. My mother's a Kriyaban, she serves in our Pune group, and she met Jaya after some time, when he was in India. And she asked him, how's my son doing? And his answer was fantastic. He says, he's doing well, but he needs to be careful. What do you mean he needs to be careful? He's at the best place in the world, for the spiritual path, Ananda village. Yes, but people go there. It's such a big place. People are on their own. They forget their resolve to meditate deeply. Yogananda says this. He says in the Astral Worlds, it's so perfect that very few make spiritual progress. So if you are watching from Ananda village, this beautiful, beautiful place, this is not our home. This is a way station. Our purpose, its purpose, is to help us run even faster with all the support it gives us to our goal. This is not criticism. This is not condemnation. We are all friends here. But this is not an easy task to accomplish without constant reminders. I live in a monastery. We have a very strong group magnetism. We have group sadhanas. We have other things, long meditations. And so it's easier. Without that, probably what Nayaswami Jaya had seen in many, many people happen might have happened to me also. So I'm very grateful for that support. You all of us must find that support. One purpose, becoming free. So I want to suggest, I have here a couple plans on how we can keep that divine fire burning within us. And the first one is, now I'm going to talk about something fun also. I saw one of the residents here, they had a photo of that person with their college friends, and they were all holding this little cardboard piece. On it was written, Vegas or bust. And first of all, or bust is an American phrase. I had no idea what it meant. So I says, what does Vegas or bust mean? These are college kids. So I went online and searched for it. It means I'm 100% committed to reaching, in this case, Las Vegas. No matter what happens, I'll die trying, but our goal is to reach Las Vegas. Now, Yogananda's philosophy was, you can use anything to inspire you on the spiritual path. And when I saw that, I says, well, this is a good motto for us as yogis. Samadhi or bust. Self-realization or bust. Don't have a plan B. Here, we live in a place which has fire hazards. Now, if you're dealing with fire hazard, you have to have plan A, B, C, D, E, F. You know, if this road is congested, do this. If this happens, shelter here. If that doesn't work, go there. But when it comes to self-realization, burn all your bridges behind you. No plan B. What's your plan? If you don't find God, I have no plan. Vegas, not Vegas. Samadhi or bust. Everybody goes to Vegas. That's not what we are affirming. Samadhi or bust. Self-realization or bust. This is how Yogananda ji himself lived his life. And this is how he wanted all of us to live on his behalf as his students. As I was thinking of these things, somehow, just 24 hours ago, or maybe 48 hours ago, I found a letter of Paramount Yogananda's, which I had not seen before. And this was exactly on this topic. So I says, I'm going to read it for all of us here. So this is a letter he wrote on December 16, 1942, to Louis Carpenter. Dear Miss Carpenter, thank you for your letter written December 8th. I am so pleased to see your enthusiasm for self-realization. And I pray that you will never be satisfied with anything less than the highest illumination. Let God come first in your life, and duties to the world trail second. Then alone will you realize the true purpose of life. Now, when I read these letters, you know, one of the things I do is often I'll replace the name of the student with my own name, because that way I receive free guidance from the Guru. And so whatever your name is, think these lines are addressed to you, especially those of you who are here at Ananda village. When I was learning to drive in California, you have to read the driving manual and you have to give a quiz. They often had this statement there: driving is not a right, it's a privilege. Living here is a privilege. We must learn to become worthy of it. How many of you have seen Saving Private Ryan by Tom Hanks? You know, that's the last thing he says after he saves this particular private. Earn it. Earn the right to live this life, for which so many have given up their lives. So we are here, fantastic place. We have the friends. Now, if you are watching not from Ananda village, you have the same friendship. We are all in this together. You are not alone. Feel free to reach out. Receive magnetism. Yogananda often used to say to those around him, you are stealing lots of magnetism. It's good. It'll help you. So steal magnetism from those who are magnetically enthusiastic about this particular path. And then it becomes easier. So these lines, I'm so pleased to see your enthusiasm for self-realization, and I pray that you will never be satisfied with anything less than the highest illumination. Let God come first in your life and duties to the world trail second. That does not mean you do the duties wrong, but you have to learn how to do this right. Then alone will you realize the true purpose of life. Now, there's another thing that's important. When we say we won't have any plan B, we only have plan A. That plan A has to be foolproof. Otherwise, we are going to get sunk. So we have all decided we want to become self-realized. When you took the vow of discipleship, you signed on the dotted line saying, the purpose of life is to become self-realized. How do we make that foolproof? So just having an intent is not enough. I'm going to suggest a few things we can do. All of us should do, and you might find it surprising. Even long-time members, disciples, sincere souls, all of us are sincere souls. There's no doubt about that. But things creep in. and then we forget a few nuts and bolts that are so important. The first thing, because I teach lessons in meditation, or I'm one of the instructors, Nayaswamis Jyotish's book, first chapter it says, most important thing that will make or break your spiritual life is having a routine. Now, there are a few things routine does not mean. Here's what routine does not mean. If you say, I'll meditate every day, that's not a routine. If you say, I'll meditate twice every day, that's still not a routine. If you say, I'll meditate 1 hour every day, that is not yet a routine either. A routine has to have a time stamp. 6 a.m. to whatever, 7 a.m. Evening 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. Otherwise, what happened to me when I was watching Spiderman, 5 minutes later, I'm busy right now, will happen to you. So have a routine. The second thing, part of this routine is not just meditating twice a day. Your weekly long meditation. If you say sometime during the week I'll have my 3-hour meditation, probably weeks will go by. You might find the end credits of your life are rolling up the screen, and that resolve has not been fulfilled. Have a routine. When is your 3-hour meditation? And the third is 2 weeks of seclusion. I am going to seclude right after this Sunday service, so you should book your spot also. This was what Swami Kriyananda said. Have 2 weeks of seclusion. Don't wait until the last moment. Don't wait until you say, I'm drained, now maybe I need a seclusion. You don't do seclusion when you are drained. You have to be enthusiastic about it. So plan for it. That's a part of routine. All these things are important. The more responsibilities you have, the more important it is to do these things. So if you are married, if you have 1 or 2 children, and all those things, don't think you are exempt. Or if you have a job which is not inside Ananda village, you have to have these things. Work with your spiritual advisors. Everybody needs a spiritual advisor. If you don't have one, get in touch with us. If you don't live at Ananda village, get in touch with us. And there will be a way, especially if you have an understanding spouse, to make these things happen. And then suddenly we find, when we put first things first, somehow the divine hand helps us take care of other things in life. Yogananda said, the greater the will, the greater the flow of energy. Similarly, the greater the responsibilities, the greater the need for a strong routine and doing each and everything that routine entails. So I have to go get my annual checkup, a week from now. It's amazing. Every time you go to the clinic, even if it's just for a headache, or if you have a fractured finger, they'll make you fill all these other things. Have you been feeling dizzy? Do you feel that you don't want to live, etc., etc., etc.? And I think that's a good way to counsel people. When they come to you for counseling, saying something is not working, start with that checkup. Have you been meditating twice a day? Have you a routine? When's your long meditation? Where's your seclusion? Have you been chanting? These are important things. These are fun things. Don't feel pressured. Don't try to figure these things out just by yourself. It's hard because we are hypnotized by our way of life. But today, this is your homework. I like to give fun homeworks. Not tomorrow, today, get together with your spouse, if that applies to you, and help each other. That's what marriage, spiritual relationships are about, helping each other become free. And plan out, what's our meditation routine? When can we meditate, do the long meditation? Can you take care of the kids while I do it? When can I have my seclusion? If we plan this, involve your spiritual advisor, be very, very sincere student. That's what we need to be, sincere students of this path. We have all come to our Guru, Paramahansa Yogananda, very sincerely. And unfortunately, this world is very mesmerizing. It keeps us busy. But with support, with friendship, with discipline, we can get there. So here's a little quote I want to read to you. And then the way we'll end is by going back to Whispers from Eternity and doing this affirmation together. But this is a quote from Swami Vivekananda, which I read as a kid. Take up one idea. Make that one idea your life. Dream of it, think of it, live on that idea. Let the brain, the body, muscles, nerves, every part of your body be full of that idea. And just leave every other idea alone. This is the way to success, and this is the way great spiritual giants are produced. So let's all try to help each other become great spiritual giants. And now we'll do Paramahansa Yogananda's Whispers together. Koral, my good friend who's helping with the camera, is going to focus on one of the photos of Paramahansa Yogananda. As you will see in that photo, he's ready. He has his walking staff, and he has his determination. He's ready to go become self-realized. No plan B. That's how we want to be. If you have been listening to the Sunday service until this point, on the side, while cooking, doing something else, while relaxing on the chair, that's all right. But now, when we are going to use our Guru's words, which have the power to recharge us, let's sit still. Let's give these words our 100% attention. So this prayer demand to return home. Let's do this together. Close your eyes or look at the photo of Master. Impediments beware. Flee my path. I am homeward bound. Through the long corridors of time, stumbling often into pits of error. Then lifted out by thy unseen hand, I have walked painfully. Discouraging darkness, barbed wire fences of habits, stony embankments of indolence, mountains of indifference, oceans of unfaithfulness, sirens of sense longings, may stand even now in my path, as if to prevent my onward march to thy palace. Now focus deeply. But 1,000,000 kingdoms and sextillions of years of unblemished worldly happiness will never tempt me again to turn away from thee. Many blessings on your spiritual journey.
Home is a green hill, home is a wind, blowing betrayal far, far away. Home is the knowledge heaven is near. Home's the end of the fray. Home is my heartland, home's where I am. Nothing can dim the light of my soul. Home is forever, home is today. Home's a heart that is often I dream that life is a play, laughter forever and skies never gray. But when I'm silent, freed from all care, I discover my home's everywhere. Home is a green hill, home is a wind, blowing betrayal far, far away. Home is the